Hello and welcome to another great episode of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast caught at the crossroads of curation and castration. I'm Ben.
And I'm Curt.
And that's maybe the first time we've ever introduced ourselves. So everyone who's been sitting in mystery every week thinking, which one's Ben, which one's Curt? This voice is Ben.
This is Curt.
Yeah, so there we go. Now that we got that out of the way. Curtis, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm just soaked right in that Fallout world. I'm just right.
You're still deep in New Vegas?
Here's the thing. I'm so deep into New Vegas. This is how you know when it's really bad. I'm so into New Vegas. The other day I thought to myself, maybe when this is over I'll give Fallout 4 another go.
Nah.
And that's bad. You know that's bad.
It's just going to bum you out.
It's gonna ruin this hype train. So.
Yeah. No, what you got to do is you got to go back and play Fallout 1 and 2. That's all that can give you that same energy.
I don't know if that can either.
Yeah.
I think this is... I think for me, there's like... New Vegas is like Coca-Cola, and then Fallout 3 is like your Diet Coke. Like, it's not really the same, but sometimes you're just jonesing for that. And then, like, there's, Fallout 1 and Fallout 4 is like vanilla Coke. And you're like... Every once in a while, you're like... Maybe I could go for a vanilla Coke.
Fallout 1 is Coke when it still had cocaine in it.
Is it?
Fallout 2 is that with like a little vanilla flavor in it. Then the rest of your soda analogies are spot on.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe I'll give it another go.
Yeah.
After Fallout 4.
You're never going to be
every
Fallout.
Time you plan
You're never.
It adds like a 200 hour like.
But wait, I need to spend 400 hours 100%ing Fallout 4 first. How's that going to impact the timeline?
I'm disappointed. I haven't even played it enough to do the main DLC. Like
Fallout 4.
Yeah,
huh.
And I just feel like there's an opportunity in a Fallout game for me to go to my home state, and that is like, how can I not do that? How can I be a Fallout fan and not do that? Granted, I've never been to Bar Harbor, but still.
Right, it's the fucking tourist part of here.
It's still in Maine.
Yeah, it's just like Massachusetts' like extension into Maine. Yeah, it's rotten.
We can't deny Maine's history. We broke off. We were Massachusetts.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I've been pretty good. The baby's doing good.
That's good.
She's eating, breathing, all that good stuff. All the things that we love to do on this podcast.
All the things we take for granted.
Yeah. You don't... Until you watch a baby celebrate drinking a full bottle by just stopping breathing for a little while.
Yeah.
I want to relax. I want this to be my time. I'm just going to stop breathing.
I know. I went to visit your wife and your baby the other day, and it was magical. It was a very... First of all, just seeing your friend that you've known forever now with a baby, that was just like crazy. Like, that's your baby too.
Yep.
I haven't seen you two in the same room since it happened. No. I think I'm going to have like another weird experience at that moment. Like, but it was awesome, and it just made me think like, wow, there's so many just little human things I take for granted. Like, Megan had to remind your daughter to breathe, and I was like, wow.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, she said, I was like, oh God, what's happening? And she was like, oh, this is multiple times a day. Just give her a little nudge, wake
constantly,
her up.
Yeah.
And just like, wow, what a unique thing for me to witness.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like we were saying, things we take for granted.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
I've realized we don't have a cool name for the Lynch marathon that we're working on. We had Tarantino-verse, we had Texorcism.
Yeah. Do we just want to brainstorm this right now on the air? Or do you have something?
No, I don't. The only thing the first and only thing I thought of was the lynching, but that's really
inappropriate.
So, I mean, clearly that's not it. But I do have to say, before we talk about what we're going to talk about, I have to say something about Eraserhead that I missed last week. I don't know how I didn't talk about this because it's one of my favorite pieces of imagery in the whole film.
Okay, hit me.
Jake, earmuffs. Sorry. I was so focused on, we were talking about the things that are still really hard to watch after multiple viewings, and we both agreed that the way the treatment of their baby is some of the hardest things to watch. I forgot to mention that in that scene where Mary tells the baby to shut up, and then she kind of like freaks out and leaves. There's a part where you're so used to seeing her do weird things. I neglected to mention the part where she like crawls down on the floor and starts like shaking the bed and staring at Henry.
Oh, to pull her suitcase out?
Oh, is that what she's doing?
That's what she's doing. It's stuck under there.
And then even Henry looks at her like, what the fuck are you doing?
Why are you doing this?
But I love that because I didn't even realize she was pulling her suitcase out. I thought she was just like, kind of like when she was having a seizure, just like
intimidating him.
Ruining her mind. And then I realized that now it kind of ruins it. Now it's stupid.
Okay.
I'm
Sorry.
just looking for meaning that isn't there, apparently.
My bad.
I really liked that she's like doing all that crazy stuff, and then kind of in a way she's making the bed creak and shaking the bed so it hits the wall, and then she's like looking at him through the bars,
yeah.
And it just made me think of like that's a really cool way to like bring back that when they like shook the bed and made the bed creak, it like now she's like in a prison because she was like shaking the bars like prison bars.
I 100% do not think that is looking for meaning where none exists. I think that is an excellent reading of that shot.
That was the fucking coolest shot in that movie, and I completely forgot to mention it.
I always forget about that shot. Whenever that happens, I'm like, oh yeah, and then they spend 20 seconds on this.
And now that I know she's just trying to pull a suitcase out, it kind of is a bummer that I...
No, dude, no. The meaning is there because there's no... If all she's doing is trying to pull that suitcase out, then there's no reason for it to be so extended. Yeah. I think that you're picking up on something very real in that moment.
That's your seventh viewing, baby. That's when you're deep and you notice...
That's when you really get to watch Eraserhead.
That's when you're reading the script along with the movie.
Yeah, the 5-page long script.
So today, now that I got that out of the way, we're
I get the feeling that's not going to be the last time Eraserhead is going to come up on this podcast. That's just a hunch that I have.
I'm sure it's not, because I fully plan... whenever we talk about a David Lynch movie, I'm not going to compare it to the one that came before it. I'm going to say, okay, how does this relate to Eraserhead?
Eraserhead is the root of all of his movies. Yeah. So
today we're moving on from Eraserhead to his second film, The Elephant Man.
Yes, The Elephant Man. When did this come out? 1980?
Yes.
On the 100th anniversary of Joseph Merrick's death. Yeah, which there was a stage play around the same time as well.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it was kind of the centennial energy. People wanted to look back at this man who had lived.
I noticed too that at the I don't know how if you watched all the credits through The Elephant Man, at the very end of the credits, there's like a little like asterisk essentially card that's like, hey, this is based off the book about the Elephant Man, this is not borrowing from the play about the Elephant Man, so we don't have to pay you any money. Like,
also titled The Elephant Man.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with that. We're not giving you any money.
It's just a weird coincidence.
So, I had not seen this before.
No,
you had not.
No, I watched it in health class, but I had very limited memory of it.
So, what did you think?
It's pretty good.
Yeah. I think it was hard. My initial thought was that I had no idea what it was about. I mean, I knew who the Elephant Man was, but I had no idea if it was a horror movie or a drama or whatever. But the fact that it was shot in black and white by David Lynch and came out directly after Eraserhead, I was like, is this going to be... It was very hard not to compare it to Eraserhead. So the first time I watched it, I found it very emotional, but I kind of walked away from like, yeah, that was pretty good. That was, and I think the reason that I felt like that is just that it's so much more of a standard film than Eraserhead, that if you have Eraserhead on your mind, it just kind of like, yeah, that was
pretty. That was a pretty good movie.
Good. I watched
like the kind of movie that people watch.
And I watched it again last night, and I think I enjoyed it a lot more the second time. It was a pretty enjoyable experience.
Yeah, solid movie.
That
was Ben and Curt till.
All right, well,
see you next week.
Dune. That's really. We just have to get through this shit so we can talk about Dune. I'm going to read Dune in 1 week.
Are you?
No.
Okay.
And then
I might reread Dune because that book's tight.
If maybe I'll go down to the library tomorrow and see if they have it there. I'm sure they have it because if I could
give it a skim.
If I could quickly get my hands on it, I'd probably breeze through it. It was also recommended to me today to watch the documentary about
Jodorowsky's Dune.
Yeah, because apparently he was going to make it, and then he spent a bunch of money like doing preliminary research and.
Well, there's so much like dude, you just don't want to talk about Jodorowsky's Dune right now.
Let next week.
We'll put that away. There's a lot of weird parallels between David Lynch and Alejandro Jodorowsky. But okay, The Elephant Man.
Elephant Man.
I think that this movie, by virtue of not being scripted by David Lynch, loses some of the power of what you expect when you hear like David Lynch movie.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to say some of the same things about Dune, though I don't know what involvement he had in that script. A David Lynch movie is a very special thing because it's a singular vision, right? And David Lynch, as a filmmaker, has a very specific frame of reference. He's highly psychological. He's not really, doesn't seem to be talking much about the world as it is. He seems to be talking more about the world as it exists in our heads. That's certainly the case for Eraserhead and the other Lynch movies I've already seen, Blue Velvet and, whatever. Twin Peaks also, though we're not going to talk about that. So when it comes to The Elephant Man, and you have a script that is not by David Lynch being directed by David Lynch, to me the most impressive thing about this movie is the technical advancement that it shows in Lynch as a director. Going from Eraserhead, a movie with like 3 characters in it, to this movie where suddenly the ambition of the technical setups explodes. Like you have big scenes with crowds and dozens of different sets, all, and like these the cinematography, the black and white cinematography is still impeccable the whole way through as well. Yeah. Like you get the compositions are incredible, and the imagery is still maybe not as focused as it is in Eraserhead, but it's still there. The shots of machines are great. The scene in the train station when Joseph Merrick is kind of chased down into the bathroom by this mob of angry people who think that he's been like abusing children is terrifying, and it links up with all the machine imagery and
I mean, I don't know if I should say very clever, because maybe I'm just like I hate saying something is really smart and then it's not smart, because then I'm just like it just shows how fucking dumb I am. But when he's running through the subway and he knocks that little girl over and the mob forms, I'm like, wow, this is... And it's also black and white. I'm just like, this is pulled directly out of Frankenstein. Yeah. Which is a very cool, like... Oh, yeah. And then he yells, "I'm not a monster." Mm-hmm. And I think that was just literally Frankenstein's monster. And then the same thing happens to him and he has to yell, "I'm not a monster."
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
That is very cool. You've kind of had Frankenstein on your mind, though.
Yeah.
And whether it's intentional or not is kind of immaterial. It's like it's such a... It was clearly on people's minds in the 20th century, like the ways in which men are transformed by society into monsters. So yeah, what are your thoughts on The Elephant Man?
Well, I was doing a little bit of research about it because I had like no knowledge about it at all. And as a quick tidbit, one thing that I thought was really interesting that has nothing to do with anything, but it was produced in part by Mel Brooks.
So he kept his name off it,
yeah.
Right? But he saw Eraserhead and said, like, that guy.
Yeah.
That one.
And I think that it was probably great to keep his name off of that, because you wouldn't want somebody going into that being like, oh, Blazing Saddles. Like,
this is hilarious.
And then having to sit through that. But I've heard 2 people refer to the movie as a biopic, and I'm curious about that now, doing research, when really the movie is not very factual.
No.
And it makes, to the point they change his name. They call him, his name's John Merrick in the film. And
yeah,
Joseph Merrick.
I guess there's some confusion over... his name was Joseph Merrick, but they call him John Merrick in the film. I'm not sure where that comes from. I'm not sure what the origin of that is, whether it's an intentional attempt to differentiate the character in the film from the actual man, or if it's an error that got introduced somewhere else, because that's the thing with like old names.
Yeah.
Especially in the 1800s.
But there weren't that many of them.
There weren't many names, A. And B, like, your name would just kind of change over time. Sometimes, especially if you weren't a very important person in the society of the time, your name was malleable.
Yeah. So that was just something I wondered about, where I didn't know if this movie was actually, like, literally considered a biopic, or I was just surprised at how much of the film had been kind of changed or given a clearly more, I want to say, like, romantic or dramatic turn rather than the factual.
Well, So I want to talk about that, but first let's give a rundown of what the movie is like, right? What's the plot? Anthony Hopkins' character, Dr. Frederick Treves, goes to a freak show one day and is interested in this elephant man, right? He's advertised as being half elephant, half man. And he goes in and he sees this man. He has these physical deformities, and Treves becomes interested in getting closer to him and seeing what he's like. So he visits him after hours. Long story short, he takes him back to this hospital, presents him as a physician would present an interesting case study, rather than as a carnival barker would present a freak. And they strike up a friendship. And Treves is ultimately responsible, seemingly, in the film at least, for Joseph Merrick, known as the Elephant Man in the popular newspapers of the time. They strike up a friendship, and Treves is responsible for him ultimately being able to live several years in dignity rather than in the debasement of being known only as a freak, being used as like the horror movie of the time.
Yeah.
Like that's very clearly how he's signaled at the beginning as horrific by the cinematic language. Even uses that he's concealed, right? He's always, you see the imagistic representation of him on the sign before you ever see him, and then when you do see him, the curtain is pulled back after the prelude. The carnival barker, his like manager owner guy who calls himself a partner, even when Treves is there alone, he gives the spiel at the beginning, right? Yeah. He's like, this man, his mother trampled to death by elephants.
I love, too, that as they're building up the suspense for how horrific this attraction is, they have, you know, the poster with him on it, and then there's the curtain, and they pull the curtain back, and he's got a sheet over his head, and it's every time you think you're going to see him, they kind of, it's a really good way of storytelling for back then. Is just kind of like, it just builds suspense over and over again to really, probably, I think the storytelling and then the suspension really helps your brain kind of tune it in as like a horror and not just a guy you feel bad for.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if people felt bad for people back then. I think it was pretty common to just ew, you're so ugly.
Yeah,
like,
we didn't invent sympathy until 1949.
That's a pretty new, to feel sympathy for someone that's not directly connected to you. That's like a 20th century invention.
Ben and Curt Till It Hurts does not advocate this ahistorical reading of human psychology. We know blah blah blah. So yeah, that's kind of the basic rundown of the Elephant Man. Now, what were we going to talk about before that? Before we went into the summary, I've forgotten.
I think we were talking about the concept of it being a biopic, despite many things being different.
So many of the details are not right. A lot of the details are taken from Frederick Treves's, who was an actual historical individual, Frederick Treves's like journal about the Elephant Man, which already like skews what was going on, because it seems like Treves was quite a sentimental man, and it seems like he thinks he was very... it seems like he thinks he saved this guy. And in a way, he did, right? Probably. It's hard to know the actual details because almost none of Joseph Merrick's actual writings exist now.
Yeah.
Though he was quite a prolific corresponder. He wrote letters to people, and it seems like he was very well spoken. Not a lot of those letters are available for public viewing. But it skews, being taken so much from Treeves's writing skews the way the movie portrays it, to the point where I think it does not make sense to consider it a biopic.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing, where just at first I was thinking, like, you know, it really is strange that for like a biopic, it really focuses on a pretty short window of time in this guy's life. That was before I'd done any research, and then I was like, so his name's not the same. He did have parents. Like, he willingly went and worked in a circus.
Yeah, like he doesn't
like
seem to have had such a terrible relationship with the people who he worked with.
I think I was skimming Wikipedia in my car at 5 a.m, so this is the level of research.
The best way to skim Wikipedia, by the way.
Gone into this. But I believe he voluntarily joined a circus to be a freak, and then he left the circus before he even met Treeves, and became kind of a non-traveling attraction at some kind of store, essentially.
Yeah, it was like a drugstore. This was something they used to have at fucking Rite Aid. Yeah, like
this was back when you drank whiskey to get rid of like colds and stuff. So like, and so I thought that was, you know, interesting. And then
wait a minute, you don't drink whiskey to get rid of colds?
I drink whiskey all the time for everything.
Regardless of whether I have a cold.
So far, it's worked great. There's whiskey in this, actually.
I thought mine tasted a little weird.
Oh, maybe mine. No, maybe it's yours. Yeah. So I think we're basically on the same page with that idea of, I didn't realize how different from reality this film was going to be.
Many artistic liberties were taken to make a point.
Yeah.
And I think the point is worth making. Because the point is about how, for me, the most emotional scene in the movie, well, not the most, one of the most emotional scenes of the movie, particularly for Treeves's character, played wonderfully by Anthony Hopkins, is when he is talking to his wife, and he's like, he's tormented by this idea. He's talking to her, and he says, like, have I just taken him and turned him into a freak at a different level of society? He's concerned about whether or not he's actually improved Joseph Merrick's lot.
Yeah.
Which is a valid concern, because Joseph Merrick is like people are coming to have tea with him, and they're obviously terrified.
Yeah.
You know, there's that great scene of him like sharing a sit down chat with these two people who are almost like rendered silent by his appearance. Which is his appearance is another great high point of the movie. Like, what an incredible special effect.
That's that holds up so well now. And apparently that movie was the cause of the creation of the best makeup and effects. Was it Oscar?
Yeah.
Or Golden Globe? I don't remember.
Oscar, I think.
Which I thought was pretty interesting that had never been considered before until this came along and was so influential that they did, you know, we need to do that. We need to acknowledge that this is a real skill that is just as important to a movie as writing or acting or direction.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the essential question of the movie, right? Is how possible is it? Who turned Joseph Merrick into a freak? Was it just the one carnival barker? Was it, you know, the people? Was it the disease? Did the disease turn him into a freak? The disorder, the like myriad disorders that he had? Or was it actually the force of society, the othering force of society that turned him into the Elephant Man?
Well, I think what was so interesting in that is that it's weird. For instance, I mean, it's still a 2-hour movie. Yeah. It's crazy how many different social groups they kind of put him into and then show that he doesn't fit in it. Because you meet him as a circus freak, and the police shut it down because, okay, they're like, okay, it's one thing to have chicks with beards and, like, midgets here, but, you know, this guy is not a freak. This is disgusting, you know, and shuts it down.
Is that why the police shut it down?
I believe that's why they shut it down, because they consider it's, like, too horrific to have in the town.
See, I thought it was that it was too horrific, but not because of the treatment of Joseph Merrick, but because of his appearance.
That's what I mean. Like, He's just so unsettling to look at. It's beyond.
It's like, look, women are fainting. We can't have this. This isn't fun.
And then he goes to the hospital, where he doesn't fit in at the hospital because he's an incurable. Mm-hmm. And then he meets Dr. Treves, and he tries to, you know, fit in with these high society types, and he's become a freak to these people, and he's a freak amongst the doctors. And I was really interesting how many ways that, you know, amongst the general population he's a freak, just how many different social groups they could fit him into, and just be like, no, he doesn't really fit here either. I thought that was pretty interesting. I think it makes you think a lot more when you're watching it of, you know, when you look like this or have this disease, you know, what part of your life makes it the hardest? Like, when really you show that he really doesn't fit in anywhere, you know, no matter how hard, if people are malicious towards him or accepting of him or just curious about him, you know, or he's a novelty, it's hard for him to live in any way, however people treat him. And I thought that was, I may have gone off on a tangent and lost my focus there, but
it was well depicted.
Thank you.
Yeah. One thing that I really enjoyed in this film is Joseph Merrick's hobby, where he builds a church that he can see just the top of.
Yeah.
He reconstructs this cathedral just from seeing the top of it, and I believe he imagines the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that is his escape from his life is reconstructing this architecture that he has in his head, is to me a testament to the power of imagination. You know,
I think the biggest thing that I took away from that was, you know, he knows the Bible well enough to recite passages from it. He has favorite passages. He decides to construct this thing that he can only see the top of, but he cares enough about it to build this, you know, temple for God out of imagination and what he wishes it looks like. And I really like that. That's a really good way of just showing that even though he looks like that, like he's the good one. It's all the people that come around him. I think one of my favorite points in the movie is when everybody kind of, you know, everybody sneaks in to gawk at him.
Ugh.
And it's just it's playing the carnival music, and it's that classic David Lynch nightmare cinematography, where you just really have every horrible thing. You have people like making out, which is like that, just like throwing of like sexuality in with something that's already uncomfortable.
It's a real return to that shot from Eraserhead, of the guy and the woman in the hallway, just like
we're gross.
I'm a bad guy.
Pouring liquor on him and then showing himself in the mirror, which is really above all else, like, obviously everything in that scene is wrong and horrible and even hard to watch in a movie, but there's a certain level of, like, I can see, not that this makes it right, but I at least understand living in, you know, the 1800s in England. You've never seen anything like that, and that can be horrific to see. You've never been taught to be polite to things that are different than you, and you're just curious about it. But I think really knowing that he'll be horrified by his own face and making him look at himself, that's the only thing, maybe not the only thing, I'm thinking, maybe I'm missing some things, but that is one of the things that there's no curiosity about that. That is maliciousness. That is there's no like, well, that's not right, but I can see why they're curious. I can see why if they're not allowed to go to the thing, they're like, we need to see this guy. Mm-hmm. It's already been pitched over and over again, but it's like this horrific thing that you need to see. It's your one chance to see it. You'll never see anything like this. Let's sneak in. And I thought that was just truly one of the most horrifying parts of, this movie was just like him screaming at his own reflection. It was like, ooh, fuck, that's hard to watch.
And like talking about the increased like technical accomplishment of this movie above Eraserhead, the choreography of that scene is unbelievable. Like he gets tossed around all over the room, and he gets the liquor poured on him, and he's surrounded by this maelstrom of human bodies that have come and invaded this place that he thought of as home. Yeah. He thought of this as like the safe place where he could feel like a human being finally, after not having been allowed to do so his whole life. And for them to invade that space, added to by the horror of their actions while they're in there, it's the climax of the movie, and it's really awful to watch.
I think what made it so effective for me was this movie is so great because you just have these scenes that kind of build off of each other, and how that plays for me is that when he goes to Dr. Trave's house and meets his wife for tea, they have that conversation, and he just begins to weep because no one has ever been that nice to him, and it makes him open up to show a picture of his mother.
Yeah.
And then he goes to this place that now it's his home and he's comfortable, and that gets taken away from him. And later we have a scene where after this he goes back to the circus, and I think it says so much that he was so affected by these people breaking into his house to torment him. Like, he might as well go back to the circus and live in a cage with a baboon screaming inches away from his face.
Yeah.
Like, those are on the same level of horrifying to him. Like, to have this, finally he has this safe, warm space where he's not just eating potatoes and being beaten. And to have the thing that happens to him is so traumatizing that he's just, I'll just go back. Like, clearly I'm not wanted here. And this is just as bad as, being a freak in a circus and having baboons scream at me.
Yeah. Yeah. The scene where the other circus freaks set him free.
Yeah.
And let him out of that baboon cage is pretty touching.
I really like that too. And I also found that as kind of a nice, I don't know, I was going to say callback, but maybe just like, I don't know. It made me think of, the movie Freaks, the old...
By the way, I feel bad that I just called them circus freaks. They're just performers. They're performers.
You know what? You can... And I think in this context, capital circus, capital freaks is like a it's okay to... It's a title that... Okay. Maybe not the best time to go down this road.
Uh-huh.
Are you familiar with the movie Crippled Masters?
No.
So, it's a martial arts film made in China. I have it, but I don't see it up there. It stars two Chinese guys, one of whom has legs that never matured, so he has little stick legs that he like crosses Indian style, and he can walk with his hands. The other crippled master has no arms, and these are real guys that have no, they're not amputees, but paraplegics. And they really do know martial arts, and they can do a certain amount of choreographed martial arts using just their arms and just their legs. And there's a movie about how this happens to them. They have to join forces to like defeat the guy who did it to them. And people found it very offensive. It's the definition of an exploitation film. It's a movie based around, holy shit, we have these guys that don't have limbs that know how to do martial arts. What kind of movie can we write around that? And I'm curious because it's something that interests me, I think, is that at what point, if a person, okay, let's use one of these, I'm doubling down, freaks as an example.
Uh-oh.
If you are, let's just say it's the late 1800s, you're fucking 7'6" and you can't get a job anywhere because people fucking hate you for being different, and you find a way to make money and have a job just being 7'6" or whatever I said. I do wonder. It's exploitation for sure. Don't get me wrong. Being in a circus freak show is you're being exploited, but similar to when I watch Crippled Masters, I say learning martial arts is just as hard and harder in other ways for someone who is a paraplegic than not. And if you are making a living and you found a way to make that work for you, I don't know that you should feel bad about enjoying their performance. And I mean, you call them performers, so I'm not saying that. But I think that if a person that is a performer in a circus show embraces the freaks and we're circus freaks, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with using that as like the title of circus freaks, like you're at a freak show. I think that there's something, I think that's kind of cool to take back that thing. And I thought the same thing about Crippled Masters. Like, what else are these guys going to do? They're martial artists that are missing limbs, like, and they've found a way to be in movies where that's what they do. And I don't want to have to feel bad for enjoying that because they worked very hard to make this movie.
That movie sounds rad.
Yeah, we should watch it sometime.
We should do an episode about it.
Let's do an episode about Crippled Masters.
Let's put it on the list. That movie sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's not very good, but the choreography is really cool in it. Anyway.
That's what you go to it for, right? It's the performance. It's like, I'm not going to see this anywhere else.
It's a Grindhouse movie for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, these fucking freaks.
these kind fellow circus performers.
I did think it was kind of cool, maybe an unintentional or unintentional throwback to the film Freaks, which was like the proto horror film. Yeah, I was curious about how we were going to talk about this movie because I liked how with Eraserhead, it's such an unconventional movie that it really only made sense when we don't usually go beat for beat through a film. It really only made sense to talk about it like that. And I was wondering before we were recording, like, how are we going to talk about Elephant Man? And I think it almost makes sense to go the opposite way, where we're just kind of, it's so straightforward, you don't really need to like overanalyze, I think. And it's just kind of cool to, pick out your favorite parts. And it's clearly a great movie. It was loved by, viewers and critics. So, I don't know. Great movie.
It's good. I don't think I like it as much as you do.
No, I mean, I don't love it. I think it's cool for me to be able to do this David Lynch series because aside from Eraserhead, which I had only seen, a little over a year ago, I had never seen anything. I don't care either way about David Lynch. Everything else we do, we're like, well, we know we fucking love Tarantino. Let's jerk that off for a fucking couple months.
Yeah, let's milk that cow.
The best way we know how, Ben.
To me, this movie is most interesting to think of in terms of the evolution of David Lynch as an artist, which I think might be a good way to approach this series as a whole. Insofar as after Eraserhead, like, he tried to get this other movie, Ronnie Rocket or something, tried to get that off the ground, which sounds like a fully insane movie. I don't know if you've read anything about Ronnie Rocket. It's like a cartoon dream. I don't know. I can't remember much about it off the top of my head. It never ended up getting made. Like, he scripted it. I think he almost found funding, but they weren't able to quite make it work, so he decided to do some director for hire work instead.
Yeah.
And that was the genesis of him directing Elephant Man, because Mel Brooks was like, "Hey, you directed a crazy fucking movie. Let's see what you can do with this."
Job for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think,
and then I think Dune is in the same trajectory, but then Dune is such a fucking disaster that he he had built up cachet as being someone who can direct a great movie, But then he directed 2 movies that, I mean, Elephant Man is good, but it's no Eraserhead.
Right.
You know, Eraserhead is like a stone cold all-time masterpiece. Elephant Man is an interesting movie for the 80s.
Yeah,
you know?
I really think that was kind of something that I had... When I watched it the first time, it was a lot more okay than I thought it was going to be. And it was one of those things where it was, you know, similar to when I watched Jaws for the first time. Like, you know, a lot of this stuff was probably a lot cooler when it came out. This is, you know, probably... I'm so used to these things now that it probably isn't as significant as it probably was.
Jaws is still a perfect movie.
Jaws is fucking great. Don't get me wrong.
Can't wait to do our Jaws series.
We'll do our Jaws episode.
Yeah.
Oh, the series. Oh, fuck. I forget that it's a series.
You forgot that that's what we do on this podcast, right? We have to. Yeah. We still have to find the perfect pairing for Jaws.
Okay, you know what? I have it.
Yeah?
And it has nothing to do with Jaws that I know of. But neither did we think...
Dexorcism. Yeah.
I was thinking it would be fun to do George Romero's Of the Dead series. Oh,
shit.
We should pair up all of the Dawn of the Dead films with all the Jaws films.
Oh, man.
We have till October to figure this out. So.
That's good. That's good. And we're going to do it's going to be another Oktober Fest.
I guess. I don't know what else to do. I feel like...
I don't know what else to do is a good reason to do anything.
Yeah, well, we've been doing this for a year now.
Yep.
I can confidently say all my ideas are spent. Every year of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts will just be like, you know, plugging in different variables to the same equation.
We found something that works. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you watch an anime at some point, so you get ready for that, all right?
That's you know, I'm ready. I think I can... One thing, speaking of anime,
good. We're so far off the track at this point.
No, this is bringing us back.
This is gold.
So, the reason anime made me think of it because in Kill Bill, we're really this is good.
I was thinking about Kill Bill earlier
today.
I've already got Kill Bill on my mind. Let's talk for an hour about Kill Bill.
You are gonna shit when I bring this Sonic 2 into this conversation.
Oh,
God. So in Kill Bill, the flashback scene with I can't remember her name.
Oren Ishii.
Is an animated sequence.
Yep.
And at the time, I thought that was very like, oh man, I have never seen that I could think of a movie go to like a different medium to you know maybe the wall, but who gives a shit? Doesn't matter where. And I noticed that was one of the things that's so interesting about David Lynch now is like he's not really a film. He wasn't a filmmaker. He was just an artist.
He kind of stumbled into film in a pretty organic way.
And I think there's somebody with an air horn next door.
Yeah, I thought that was your chair squeaking.
No, it was definitely an air horn. They were doing it last night.
It's awesome.
I like that he is such... It's so interesting. He's an artist, not a filmmaker. And then he makes...
Filmmakers aren't artists now?
Well...
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Did not set out with the intention of being a filmmaker.
He was a visual artist first.
Just a visual artist. And he made Eraserhead, which is a masterpiece we've discussed.
Yep.
And I think that it was bold to just say, you know what, I made a movie, I'll make a normal movie. Like, I could easily see Eraserhead still being the masterpiece that it is, and then David Lynch just fucking sucking at making a normal movie. And, like, he made a really, a pretty good normal movie. And I like that even in Eraserhead and some of his short films, and for that Rocket, whatever.
Ronnie Rocket, I think it's called.
I like that because he's not, like, a filmmaker that has the intention of being a filmmaker. He's just totally cool with like, we're gonna do some stop animation in this and then some drawn animation. We're gonna have all kinds of just however I feel like I need to get the point across. That is what medium I'm going to use.
He has a tremendous amount of creative freedom, not just given to him by the people he works with, but within his own head. He has an admirable amount of creative flexibility. He really seems to just go wherever the idea takes him.
And I think that's one of the things that I am finding so interesting about him is that I'll use filmmakers or really anything, whatever your medium is, you usually you have these, this is how I envision it, you have these ideas or thoughts in your head, and you use the medium that you have to make that a concrete thing people can enjoy. If you have a story you want to tell and you're a songwriter, you make it into an album. If you're a movie maker, you make it into a movie. And I really like David Lynch. He has turned on that part of his mind that doesn't funnel it down into one thing.
Into whatever he perceives himself to be an expert at.
Yeah, he can use different visual art styles, and he makes TV shows, movies, short films. He made
an album.
Are
we going to do the album? Are we going to talk about Crazy Clown Time?
Jesus Christ! I didn't know that's what it was called.
Yeah, it's called Crazy Clown Time, and it's a masterpiece. No, we're definitely talking about Crazy Clown Time. I think that might actually be the final episode of this series. I think that's the most recent thing he's made other than a television show, which we're not going to watch.
You know what? I think what we should do is our last episode, instead of ranking them like we did with Tarantino, our wrap-up should just be like a loose ends. Like, we can use it to say some thoughts about Twin Peaks. We can say some thoughts about his short films that are all on the Eraserhead Blu-ray. We can talk about his album. We'll just wrap up with any thoughts we have about these weird fringe products that he's made.
Crazy Clown Time is a real trip, man.
We're like one step away from like just playing it on Spotify and doing a reaction podcast.
Live reaction. Live stream it. Fuck it. Yeah. Set it up on Twitch. We're going to listen to Crazy Clown Time and react in person.
Is it okay if we go totally off the rails?
Yeah, totally.
So I was watching... I'm not going to embarrassed to admit this about myself. I was watching the Nostalgia Critic rank Adam Sandler movies yesterday. Literally 2 things I am so ashamed to have to say. If I had known that I was going to have to say that, I might have taken this.
You might not have taken this
digression. Used this story.
That's like a big stop sign as soon as you hit a T intersection.
But he's gotten to, the Nostalgia Critic has gotten to a point where he's so successful that in his videos he has to plug his sponsors. And one of his sponsors is like this app where you can like react to like whatever you want and then upload it. And then because he's sponsored by them, that poor fucking guy has to just go watch a bunch of fan reactions to different, he's going to be like, I'm going to review Adam Sandler movies. What do you guys think of Adam Sandler movies? And then fucking Charlie Dickhead takes his phone and he's like, man, fucking Bulletproof's not as bad as people fucking say it is. and then they fucking throw it onto the internet. And then this guy has to go fucking watch it.
This guy lives in hell. He lives in a prison of his own devising. I feel like I say that every week, by the way. That could be the title of this podcast, The Prison of Our Own Devising.
And I cannot fucking explain to you how fucking awful an app based around fucking reactions.
Oh, no.
That sounds like my hell. And I will tell you, I'm fucking doubling down. If you're a listener of our show and you are a member of that particular app, don't ever tell me or I will not want to be your friend. That is... I hate reaction videos. I think they are I was going to say the worst thing on the internet, but
so
CP is a thing, so definitely not as bad as that.
The worst legal thing on the internet.
The worst thing that you can have you be a paid sponsor by.
Fucking House Bill 273, 2018. Let's make reaction videos illegal. Let's at least regulate them, all right?
I think Click is a pretty good movie. Turn it off.
Oh, man. So, speaking of, like, hells that people build for themselves and then film it and then put it on the internet. This is years ago that I saw this, but there's this guy, I don't even fucking know how I ended up at this. There's this guy who looks kind of like Super Mario. And what he does is he, like, reviews different ways of smoking weed on the internet.
Okay.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
right?
I'm more on board for this than Adam Sandler movies.
And for one of his videos, he was celebrating some number of subscribers, and I believe it was like 28,000 or like 280,000. I don't think it was more than 280,000, but it might have been 280,000. And to celebrate this, do you know what a dab is?
Yeah.
He said he was going to do 28 dabs in a row fast. And that's the title of the video. 28 dabs in a row, ellipsis, fast, exclamation point, exclamation point.
I have so many thoughts that I'm trying to bullet point for as a response to this.
And at the beginning, he was like having a good time.
Yeah.
And by the end, by like halfway through, you could see the regret on his face.
Yeah.
And by 28, I've never seen a human being in the state that he was in. He created hell for himself, and then he had to live in it. It was like some part of him knew he shouldn't be doing what he was doing, but it was making him finish it.
So, okay, where do I even start with this?
We should look this video up, by the way. It's pretty funny if you hate human beings.
I am not a part of like weed culture at all. And from my limited experience, not a professional, that's like my asterisk in this. I was under the impression that you could only get so high from THC, and after a while you just hit this point of just getting sick in your body, just basically like
that's what he looked like,
rejecting any more smoke in its body.
He looked a little green around the gills, like
the second part of that is I was at my friend's apartment. This was a couple years ago after work. We used to all just like meet up and go to my friend's apartment. And there was a dishwasher there that was hanging out with us that didn't usually hang out with us. And they smoked a lot. I don't smoke, but they smoked every day. And he like brought, I'm going to sound like an old man because I don't know how to I don't know the lingo. He brought some dabs. Is that? He brought like
a dab rig, like he had a blowtorch
he brought the blowtorch and the contraption, and it's literally if you have ever needed an example of a contraption, the thing you need to smoke dabs is a contraption.
Yeah,
and I had never seen it or heard about it before. It was, I think, relatively new a couple of years ago, and somebody was like to one of my friends was like, "Do you want to smoke one of these?" And my friend said, "No, dabs are the crack of weed." And so that was like my introduction. Like one of my friends who loves to smoke was just like, "No,
that's too much for me.
That's the crack of weed, and I'm not doing that on a regular work day." And then as far as like creating your own hell and then living in it, I've mastered that. I've done that, and I think about that frequently. My home life is great. I have a great home life, and I love my home life. But throughout school, I hated school. Like, I really hated high school. Not to like stroke my own ego, but like I really think by like 16 and definitely 17, I was pretty over like what high school has. Not to teach you, I'm not like super smart, but like half of high school is just like you have assignments and you have certain expectations. You need to be at certain places at certain times. It's like preparing you to have a job while also still trying to make you smarter.
It's preparing you to work in a factory.
It really is. And so by the time I was like just a little bit into high school, I was pretty like beyond that, like you need to be here at this time even though it's arbitrary because it's study hall or we don't want you to leave for lunch. So I just hated high school, and I really didn't like a lot of my teachers. I have a weird, like, I don't even want to start about teachers because I'm married to one. But now I work in a high school, and just in the kitchen. I'm not a teacher. But I'm just like, for a guy who fucking hated high school so much, and I do hate myself, so like it really only makes sense that I put myself back in a high school
You're
environment.
Gravitating. Yeah.
I hate it, yet here I am living it every day.
Yeah.
But I never got to make pizza in high school, and I'm weirdly passionate about making pizza. I love pizza.
I love pizza too.
So anyway, Elephant Man.
the Joseph Merrick was born into hell. The Joseph Merrick of the film Elephant Man. The real Joseph Merrick sounds a little. It sounds more complicated. It sounds like he was a more fully fleshed human being than the let's say John Merrick of the film The Elephant Man. John Merrick was born into a society that could create no place for him other than a place no different from hell.
Yeah.
And he just had to suffer his whole life, right? What do you think of the ending of the movie?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was I don't know how to... It was almost a little too poetic, I think.
He's literally quoting a poem.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's reading from a poem. I forget. I believe it's Tennyson.
Oh.
Nothing will die, or nobody will die, something like that.
I just think that... I don't know. I don't know. Just, I don't know the right word for it, but the fact that he had this, like, perfect day where he received a standing ovation from what he considers to be one of the most beautiful buildings and performances, that you can attain. He kind of just had a really good day, and he's like, well, it's not going to get any better than this. Or I think it's both. It's not going to get any better than this, and I know what it feels like to be normal now. I'm going to sleep like a normal person, even though I know that will kill me. It was, I had like the good, like, one tear. I was like, oh, that's sad. That is a sad ending.
Well, it's pretty incredible to think that he was a performer all his life and no one had ever given him a round of applause.
Yeah.
And then he receives the round of applause that he deserved, for performing the role that had been foisted upon him. He'd never asked for that role, but that was what he got. And then...
So, I liked the ending, and I thought it was very emotional, but I did think that was one of the things that I should read about this a little bit more, because the whole thing was just wrapped up and delivered so poetically and romantically that it made me question, like, how fucking real is this biopic? And then I found out, oh, kinda.
Very speculative.
It's a little bit real.
Now, what I suspect actually happened was that the real Joseph Merrick's condition was deteriorating by the time he was 27, 28 when he died. So I would imagine that's why he committed suicide, by going to sleep in a way that he knew would asphyxiate him.
See, I was curious because, like I said, this was like skimming Wikipedia at 5 a.m, but how I interpreted reading it, it almost sounded like it may have been accidental. Like he had been trying on and off to sleep normally, and then it just didn't work one night.
Yeah.
So I don't know enough about him to know if that, like, when he actually passed away, if it was an accident or, some poetic, like, I'm dying, so I'll just go to sleep forever.
Yeah, it's impossible to say. But whatever the case may be, do you think people should watch The Elephant Man?
You're not going to regret watching it. I would not consider it essential viewing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a fan of the show, it's essential, because obviously you wouldn't want to miss an episode of us literally not talking about the movie for half the episode. But it's good. Anthony Hopkins is great. I can't remember
John Hurt.
John Hurt. He's great in it.
The makeup is incredible. The makeup is special effect is...
All the village... I'll say townspeople, so I don't have to say village people. All the townsfolk.
What do you mean town? They live in London. Like,
yeah, I just don't want to say... You're right.
Fucking urchins, or... I don't want to say the hoi polloi, the lower class fucking monsters.
They do a very good job at making you hate them. Because I
don't think there are very many, like, sympathetic lower class people in this movie, which is a whole other issue.
And you really, I think it's you have Bites, who's the circus barker. Is his name right? Bites?
I don't know.
I think so.
He bites.
I think he is he's the bad guy.
At least for the beginning. Yeah. That role transfers over to the other guy.
Yeah, that guy turns out to be a real fucking prick.
Yeah, like, you and I are going to be real good friends.
You know what I loved about that, too, was
Go get yourself a sweet.
I really just love, like I just like how much hospitals have changed since then. I'm just like, how's it keep getting in here? Like, who's the fucking? Is nobody sitting by the door?
No, like, dude, he was a caretaker.
Oh,
he was employed by the hospital. There. He was like, you see him shoveling coal or something at one point.
But I was just like fascinated, like, how do you keep bothering him? Like, why is nobody here to like? No one can hear this. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, that guy does not. It reminded me also a weird callback to Frankenstein, but not the Universal Frankenstein, the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Robert De Niro.
The novel?
No, the Robert De Niro Frankenstein.
Who directed that?
Mary Shelley. No.
Yeah, it was the same guy that directed like a bunch of Shakespeare adaptations. I can't remember his name. Ken something. That's stupid. That's not his name.
No, that's it. All right, where the fuck?
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Don't cut any of this out.
No, this is all
gold.
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
That's why I keep those there. That's the I don't.
This is our Wikipedia. There are no DVDs in those cases. No, it's a video store display. Anyway, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
There's also a scene...
great movie.
Yeah. You know what? Underappreciated.
Yeah.
An underappreciated movie because it's a romantic period piece about a thing that's generally considered a horror topic. Mm-hmm. Fucking great movie.
Great movie. Let's do a Frankenstein series. I was
just going to say...
Boom.
We're getting rid of the Jaws of the Dead series.
Franken-Jaws.
We're doing Franken-Jaws. We should do a Frankenstein
Jaws
series.
of the Dead is so fucking good, though. Jaws of the Dead is
yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to...
That's okay. I just got weird. Ben?
So impressed by Jaws of the Dead.
Son of Frankenstein is the third movie in the Universal Frankenstein series, and it's like arguably better than the first one. It's fucking incredible. So we should do...
Bride of Frankenstein's also excellent.
Yeah, so that trilogy, solid trilogy. We should do Franken-Jaws of the Dead. That's too much. That's complicated.
Franken-Jaws. We'll figure out something else for Dawn of the Dead.
So what was I talking about?
You were talking about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Ah, yes. There is a scene in that film where there's like a hanging, I believe it is, and the townspeople are like cheering for it, and like they want the hanging to happen, and you're just like man, people were fucked up back then. I say back then, but people are still
fucked up.
You're a little, even in that same exact way, you're like, we're just going sidebar onto sidebar, but you'll be with people or work with people, and they'll like hear about a horrific thing, some person, usually it happens to like when somebody does something horrific to like a child, like, and you'll hear people say, man, I wish I could do that to that guy so he knows what it was like to do it, or when they go to jail, the same thing should happen to him, you know. And
a lot of great prison rape jokes to be heard from the general populace,
or when it doesn't matter, but that's exactly where that kind of thing comes from. And I think that it's pretty quick that we go back to like the eye for an eye, even though like that's not going to make the crime unhappen, and that's you doing that to somebody. If it's that disgusting, you shouldn't want to do that to any person anyway, even if they did it to somebody else.
Yeah. But, well, you want to. You shouldn't do it. It's okay to want to, I guess, but don't indulge that.
Yeah.
Fucking morals corner on Ben and Curt till it hurts.
We can't get into morals corner because I don't even know if we would agree on that last. I don't know.
No, let's do it. Let's do it. Come on, Curtis.
There's nothing to be gained by it. we're just not. That's one of the beautiful things about our co-hostmanship is that I think I don't know. We're not going to get into it.
Not on the air.
Not on the air. Anyway, that's about it.
You have anything else to say about the Elephant Man?
No, I'll go back three indentations.
Pop 3 layers.
Yeah. I wouldn't call this essential viewing. I think it's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
I think it probably was a lot more influential at the time that it came out than if you want to watch a a drama now. You can watch Forrest Gump or something.
Forrest Gump is a fucking Elephant Man remake. I hadn't even realized that. Oh my word! What was your favorite part of the Elephant Man? Well, I really liked the part where he ran across the United States. Frederick Treves' fucking gumbo stand.
Yeah. So, what's next? What's the next?
Oh, can I give my opinion about the Elephant Man?
Does it matter? No.
Of course not. None of this matters.
Yes, please.
The Elephant Man is not essential, but read about Joseph Merrick.
Yeah.
Definitely go read about Joseph Merrick.
I can get behind that.
Seems like a fascinating individual. There's never been another person quite like him in the historical record, and I think that he tells us some stuff that we often don't like to think about Victorian society, about just how dehumanizing the early industrial age was. And it really makes you think, like, did the industrial age just stop being dehumanizing at some point? Has it stayed exactly as dehumanizing, or has it become more dehumanizing over time? I think it's become more dehumanizing.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I think that people, so much around us is mechanized and automated that we no longer have a sense of what it means to be a human being who fits into the working and organic machinery of society.
I don't know, man.
That's why you hated school, right? Because schools now are industrial schools. They're meant to raise everyone exactly to the level of being able to work in a factory. There's a lot of alienation that occurs because of that.
The thing is, though, I would be inclined to disagree with that, because I think even the concept of identity is like a relatively new idea. Like, when the Industrial Revolution happened, you just became a cog in a machine. Like, that was your purpose, was to just make the machine go. And I think we've stepped away from that because of things like 40-hour work weeks, mandatory, overtime pay, vacation time, sick time, paid lunch breaks, people doing, a lot of jobs will... I was actually really surprised. One of my coworkers left the job that I work at now, and they got a job at like a department store. And every morning when they get there, they do like yoga stretches for like 10 minutes. So I think we may have hit that point, but I think we've kind of moved. I think we're acknowledging, maybe after too long, but I almost think that since the 2000s, we are at least acknowledging that you can't just live your life without your own. You need those couple days a week and a couple hobbies, like, to just, maybe I'm losing track here. I think that it's not so dehumanizing anymore. There's aspects of jobs that have come and been secured that show a little more humanity in it, instead of just like, well, what do you mean you fell on the floor? Get back up and start throwing things in things again.
Move that thing from there to the other place.
But I don't know, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I see what you're saying is like we have come to acknowledge that there's a certain kind of alienation that comes with industrial society, but rather than wondering if we need to fundamentally change the way our society operates, we've just kind of made it so that your industrial job won't literally kill you or drive you crazy as much as it did before. It's like, wait, 40-hour work weeks. Okay. Well, I can't work you for 80 hours anymore, but, A, some people will still decide to do that. And B, like, that doesn't make it better. We've like landed on 40 hours weirdly arbitrarily. It wasn't as though a bunch of scientists got together and said, like, 40 hours is the amount of work that every person in society needs to do to make society run. they decided on 40 hours because it was like, well, we're working 100 hours right now. What do we think we can get from the capitalists? And they landed on 40, but it's starting to seem like there is not 40 hours worth of work for everyone to do.
Yeah.
You know, so you end up with jobs that are just meaningless, middle management jobs where you're making sure where your job is to make sure 10 other people put in their 40 hours and you somehow spend 60 to 80 hours doing that.
I'm a unit chair.
Have you heard of Marxism?
Yeah. I'm a unit chair for the union at my job, and so I get mail from like my union all the time, and a lot of times it's like cringy slogans and stuff because that's the stuff that like sticks with you. But I did find one particularly humorous, though not entirely true. There was just like basically saying how it's about wages going up and how wages need to go up and we're not paid enough and all that. And they were just saying how this is a country where someone can make what was like $250,000 a month to pay somebody $25 an hour to tell you they can't afford to pay you more than $10 an hour. Like,
yeah.
And I thought, like, I don't necessarily think that's like 100% true. I do think it's more of a catchy slogan, but like, I did think that was pretty humorous.
That's true in a way. You know, like it might not be true in all cases, but it's true enough to be worth thinking about.
Yeah. Man, who knew we were going to go down this road?
We always go fun places here on Ben and Curt Till It Hurts.
I like it. I like it better than the Elephant Man.
Yes.
The longer this podcast is, the more I don't like the Elephant Man.
Yeah, there are some really good things in the Elephant Man.
I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Maybe 6.5.
I'd give it a 5 out of 9.5.
Okay.
Yeah. You're
really breaking down these categories. You're eliminating categories.
9.5 scale. I give it an 11 out of 4.
Wow. Trying to do the math. I never do the math. Anyway.
Yeah.
We wrapping it up here?
Yeah, I think so. What are we talking about next week?
I don't know. Dune.
Dune.
We're talking about Dune. I'm going to read Dune this week. It sucks that the library just closed. I'll have to get it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well,
at least read a little bit of Dune.
Like
it's okay if you don't finish it.
I'll do some research.
I'm going to try to reread Dune because I love that book.
The main important thing to talk about here, to mention as we walk away from Elephant Man, is that so far when we've looked at directors or artists, we love that artist because we love all of their work. Mm-hmm. And with this, the main difference for me, I have no knowledge or expectations of David Lynch. So I'm not even looking at The Elephant Man. I'm just looking at where was David Lynch when he made Eraserhead? Where was David Lynch when he made Elephant Man? What happens between now and next week when he makes Dune? I think I'm trying to focus more on the man himself, rather than any artistic vision or quality of each film, because that doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. I think that The Elephant Man was a worthwhile project because it seems like David Lynch learned a shit ton about his own capabilities as a filmmaker.
And it got him into that mainstream. Like, that's a hell of a way to break into the mainstream. Mm-hmm. Not, a lot of times you'll have a director that, well, they kind of directed this okay movie from 5 years ago that you didn't watch, and then, this is they're getting their first chance to direct this, whatever. They get to direct a Marvel movie. Holy fuck.
They get to have their souls ripped out through their fucking noses.
They get to have Marvel tell them what kind of movie to make and then get their name on it.
Are you going to see Black Panther?
Man,
have we talked about this already?
We haven't, and I don't even know if we should on the air because I just have so many. I'm so emotional about it.
Yeah.
Should we talk about it?
You want to? How long have we been going? Hour 15.
Hour 15. We'll do a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk Marvel Corner. Comics Corner with K's for both of them.
Too many. Too close. If you're talking
Kurt's Comic Corner.
Too many K's for a movie called Black Panther. I think we're just edging.
I don't want to get too close to fucking lynching the
edging. On a series called The Lynching.
Definitely not called The Lynching.
Wow.
Definitely not. I saw a to make it very serious and to put us in the right mindset. I saw a photograph of a lynching in Texas the other day, and it is horrifying to think that that kind of thing happened. However, it is also horrifying to look into the eyes of the white people at that lynching, to see you have the older generation, the patriarchs, you have the generation of men who are young men in their 20s and 30s, and then you have the children, right? Each of them is terrifying in their own way. And you look at the middle men, the men in their 20s and 30s, and you compare it to the photographs of like the Charlottesville marches, and the looks on their faces and in their eyes are exactly the same. Unbridled rage and an inability to accept personal responsibility for their own suffering, thereby foisting that suffering upon innocent people. Horrifying stuff. Ben and Curt Till It Hurts does not advocate lynchings. We agree that lynching is one of the darkest periods in American history. In a history that is replete with dark moments. Sometimes it feels like more darkness than light. Anyway, Black Panther.
Jesus, how do I... All right. This... Oh, man, that was right up there. Sorry. This is one of those things where I'm afraid to say this, because part of me has a very real concern that I'm old, out of touch, and wrong. These are three very real fears when I say this.
I'm dealing with that a lot, too. Not about you, about myself.
about my co-host.
I'm worried about that about you too.
You should hear the shit that Curt says.
Glad we're talking about this.
Yeah, we really needed this on the air. I feel that I have seen... Fuck, I hate to even say it because I don't want it to come off wrong. On the internet, where people are talking about Black Panther coming out, I feel that I have seen a certain amount of race baiting about this movie. And particularly, so here's maybe, having said that, this is where I come in to Black Panther the movie. I grew up reading comic books. I love comic books. I had never read any Black Panther until I read Marvel's Civil War, when all of I read every issue that had anything to do with Civil War. It was like 120 issues or something. And I really, really liked the Black Panther issues because he was the king at that point of, I can't remember, Uganda? Is that the name?
Uganda's an actual country.
Okay, so...
Gondwana land? I've never read a single comic book in my life.
They made up a country name that, to my white person, it's like a very convincing African country.
I believe it might be an actual...
Wakanda. I think it's
Wakanda. I think that's right.
He was the king of Wakanda, and he was married to Storm from the X-Men. And I really, really liked him. And then, so I really like comics. That's the only thing I've read, but I really enjoyed that Black Panther arc. And I really liked comic book movies. In the past few years, I have really not liked comic book movies. So that's basically... So now Black Panther's coming out. I'm mildly interested because I like what I have read of Black Panther, and I'm interested that it has such a hip-hop and black influence on the film. I'm curious to see how they do that, because when I picture Marvel executives, I just picture a bunch of fucking white people in their 40s. So I'm wondering how it's going to come out. But anyway, I'm looking forward to this at the same amount of excitement as any Marvel movie, where it's like, yeah, I might watch it. I'll probably fucking hate it, though. Just like every other Marvel movie I've watched for 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So, back to the race baiting.
Yeah. What do you mean by race baiting?
Similar to when we had our 2017 album year in review, we were talking about the gentrification of my hometown by upper-class white people. And you had made the comment that... I think you made the comment. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That poor white people and poor black people probably have a lot more in common than they realize. and that on some level, tensions between these groups have been put there rather than naturally exist there.
I did say that, and I've been led to reconsider that point of view somewhat, insofar as it is important to recognize the differences between black poverty and white poverty, to recognize that black poverty is a much more pervasive phenomenon in society, and it is not as though, like, man, white people know exactly what black people, white people know exactly what it's like to be black people as long as they're poor enough. It's like, that's clearly not true. I'm just saying
that's not what you were going for.
That's not what I was going for. I'm saying that there are some commonalities, and that embracing those commonalities might be a good way to progress as a society.
So,
of fucking poor people. We're all poor. The rich people keep getting richer, and we keep getting poorer.
The other shoe dropped, man. It's not looking good.
Have you heard about Marxism?
I know I've mentioned this.
Have I mentioned Marxism to you before?
So I saw on Facebook from one of the many of dozen nerdy pages that I follow where they share images. This fucking thing blew up. Somebody posted this thing, and I'm paraphrasing, but they were like, I'm so excited for Black Panther to come out. Now all these white, male, comic book nerds have to watch a movie about a black superhero and a strong black superhero, and they're going to have to deal with the fact that this movie's tone is like a black tone. And I just think, because I've spent the last few years not understanding the hype behind these Marvel movies, and I thought to myself, is anybody not excited for Black Panther? Like, I really, truly don't think I've met anybody that likes Marvel movies that has said, oh man, I really don't think I'm going to like Black Panther very much. I think, to a certain degree, there are some people on the internet that are trying to create, I think that's race baiting. I think they're trying to be like, man, these fucking white nerds are finally going to get a black movie thrust in their face that they fucking have to watch because it's Marvel superheroes. When I really don't think anyone's not looking forward to the Black Panther movie.
Anybody that wouldn't be looking forward to Black Panther has already been driven away by feminist undercurrents in Marvel movies, right? That's the Venn diagram of that is like a circle. People who would be driven away by Black Panther have already been driven into the fucking dark underbelly of the internet by Marvel's social justice warrior-izing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, that is just kind of my big thing with that is, like, I think it will be as fucking mediocre and okay as, I don't know, maybe not though, because it's shit, I don't fucking know, man. It's not Thor 3. It's not the third movie. On some level, it's a new franchise being born in the tail end of this fucking overblown shit franchise. But at the same time, it's probably going to be a fucking cookie cutter Marvel.
Yeah, thing. That's what I'm scared of.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We already have an essentially perfect black superhero movie. It's called Django Unchained.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah.
And that's
literally of like Steel?
Blade?
Blade is sick though.
Blade is really good.
Props to Blade.
Django Unchained is like a fucking stealth superhero movie. That's why all that Siegfried stuff is in there. That's why her name is Broomhilda. Because all superheroes, especially the superhero movies, any hero movie it can be tied back thematically to the legend of Siegfried. And Django is a modern day Siegfried. He's called that explicitly in the text of the movie, right? And that movie's so fucking good. It doesn't get the props that it deserves.
Like being the number 2 best Quentin Tarantino film, Ben?
Is that what I said or what you said?
I think I had it as number 2, and I think you had it as number 3.
I thought you didn't like Django that much.
I think I had it as number 2 with Kill Bill as number 1, and I think you were Inglourious Bastards, then Kill Bill, then Django.
Those are the 3 perfect ones.
To be fair, Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained, and Kill Bill are fucking phenomenal movies. So. Yeah.
Yeah. I really thought you didn't like it that much. Okay, yeah, there we go.
I love Django.
Man. Django cast.
I hate when that happens. Did you hear that noise?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, whatever.
It's okay.
If you're still listening, you're fucking in it to win it. So.
If you're still listening, thank you. You're a real fan.
I wonder how many fans I've lost because of the bleeding into fucking political
rambling. At this point, we've talked about things that are not the Elephant Man more than we've talked about the Elephant Man.
That's okay.
That's fine.
We're probably gonna we're at 125. We'll
wrap this up.
We'll move towards an ending.
All right.
Are you looking forward to Black Panther? Is that your fear? Is that it's going to be a watered down Marvel whitewash thing?
We've seen it happen so much, that even movies, it's like we're living in two different cinematic worlds, or like I just haven't been trained how to watch a Marvel movie correctly, because all I can see is the things that are wrong in comparison to actually good movies.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just try to turn off the part of my brain that sees well, that editing sucks. Oh, they rammed that character in there because you got to have the hooks for the rest of the fucking franchise.
No, don't do that. Don't.
I shouldn't change my standards somewhat.
No, don't. Man,
Kendrick did the soundtrack.
I can't. I think it's important. I don't know, man. Movies are movies, and movies should be enjoyable. There's a certain I acknowledge that to some degree popcorn films are important and should exist. You should be able to you fucking work hard all week. You want to go to a movie on Friday night, ditch the kids at your in-laws' house and eat some popcorn and watch a fun movie and forget about your shitty job.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you love media as much as you and I, and you've seen what a movie can be, it's hard sometimes to just watch a fucking quickly cash grab made franchise film to just rake in some money over the weekend, and then there's no artistic vision to it, especially with the Marvel movies, because they fucking love to pretend there's some artistic vision to it.
Yeah.
I fucking hate the Marvel franchise.
Man.
So we're going to put this out in 3 segments. Part 1 is Elephant Man. Part 2 is...
The alienation of the industrial age.
Yes. And then Part 3 is the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
We've been doing a Marvel Cinematic Universe episode piecemeal throughout the podcast. If you can put together all the pieces, then you'll know our full opinions about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I'll send you $20 via PayPal if you... listen to all... This is episode 30 of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, by the way.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So if you listen to all 30 episodes of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts and clip together every talk of Marvel, I'll PayPal you $20.
Yeah, you know what? I'll double that. I'll PayPal you 20 also if you do that. No.
I mean, I don't
Jake, don't do it, Jake. It's fine.
I'm only saying $20 because I don't want anyone to do it. I don't care if it happens. It's okay, so we talked about Elephant Man, we said we're doing Dune next week, we talked about disenfranchised peoples in an industrial world, and we talked about the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Alright.
What else do we have to cover this week?
Nothing.
Okay, so we are going to wrap this up. You guys can, we appreciate the follows and the... How's our Twitter doing? Is it going okay?
It's doing okay. We've got 3 followers.
Sick.
So it's going great.
I should have asked that after we shut it off. We're building the brand of B and C till it H.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. It's hard when I don't tweet very often.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I haven't been on Twitter in a long time.
Me either. I read a lot of tweets.
But with that being said, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KurtCake5K. You can subscribe to Black Gold Podcast to hear Black Gold Podcast itself and Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, where we just take a grab bag of different social aspects and connect them in ways you never thought possible. That's apparently our new thing. We'll see you in 8 months for Jaws of the Dead. Or no, what was it?
No, we're doing Frankenjaws.
Frankenjaws.
Yeah.
Yep. And I really want to do Of the Dead something Of the Dead. Even if we have to really double up on Halloween this year.
We're both going to wake up at 3 a.m. and sit bolt upright, covered in cold sweat, and we'll have it. We'll both have the same idea.
Well, it'll be like Boondock Saints.
Hopefully not.
I I'm throwing down right now when the lynching is over.
Don't make me go don't remind me about lynching. It freaks me out. It's really
when the David Lynch series is over, Boondock Saints. We have to do it.
If we have to.
We have to. We're doing a 2-part series.
All right.
The first one, and then we're spending a whole episode on the second one as well.
Oh man.
We're gonna have a guest.
Can we get Megan in here?
Yeah, she'd be a great guest.
She would.
And then
let's do Boondock Saints paired up with Wayne's World. We'll do Boondock Saints 1 and Wayne's World 1. It's getting
its own.
Then Boondock Saints 2 and Wayne's World 2.
It needs its own.
Those are all of Megan's favorite and least favorite movies, all mixed up into one.
I don't want to dilute the Boondock Saints.
You think that Boondock Saints is going to go best uncut?
I think that for a movie that
Bob Marley's in that movie.
Bob Marley is in that movie.
He's great in that movie.
And I just think that it's like a white teenager's wet dream, that movie. Well,
Tarantino's gonna come up a lot in that movie, because there's a certain type of person who watches a Quentin Tarantino movie and then thinks like, oh, I want more things that are exactly like that. And then they watch Boondock Saints and they're like, finally, something that's exactly like a Quentin Tarantino movie. For me, a white teenager, age 28.
White teenager, age 28.
Yep.
Now I have the tattoos on my hands.
Mm-hmm.
That needs its own series.
Okay.
Its own 2-part series.
So once we're done with
David Lynch,
I will acquiesce to doing the Boondock Saints series next.
I'll watch an anime after that.
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
But
it's 26 episodes in a film.
That's not until like this,
maybe
this
2
summer.
films. Maybe 5 films. Hear me out.
Okay, 5 films.
Yeah, this is going to take the rest of the year.
I've come up with some things. I have a handful of things that are just like things that I really love that are like one thing, and I think it'd be good to pepper in some 2018.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not until
all right. Boondock Saints. I'm coming to grips with this. I'm coming to terms with it. That's the plan.
We are going to be talking.
But granted, we're going to be different after watching fucking Lost Highway, Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, and it's Inland Empire. Right?
Sounds familiar.
Is his last movie. We'll be different people after that.
We were different people after the Tarantino verse and the Texorcism.
Yeah. Oh, I'm very different after Texorcism.
Hey, speaking of Texorcism, this is going on way too long. As a guy who bitches about not having enough airtime, that HorrorCon in New Jersey that I think I'm going to, they're doing a cast reunion of Texas Chainsaw 3.
Oh.
The best Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
The best one.
Easily the best one.
Yeah, the one I liked most, certainly.
That's pretty big seller for me.
That's tight. When's that con?
March. It's like a month from now.
I don't think I'm going to be able to make it.
That's
going to be a hard sell with my wife and child.
With a newborn. Put her in a backpack.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll sling her on me, and we'll get to go meet all the great people in that amazing movie.
We're talking about Dune next week.
Dune.
I'm really excited because I know 0% knowledge about Dune.
About anything to do with Dune.
Here's the one.
Sandworms.
The one, I didn't even know that.
Okay.
This is the one thing I know about Dune, is that for a lot of teenagers that can't, they have this itch, this literary itch. Some people can scratch it with Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Some people can scratch it with Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. There's a certain group of people that itch is only scratched by Dune.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good way to. That's the correct way to conceive of Dune.
I know that it's the sci-fi nerds' Odyssey and the Iliad. It's that's about what I.
Yeah. That book's great.
So we're going to be talking about the movie adaptation that sounds like shit.
The terrible... there's never been a good adaptation of Dune.
It's unfilmable. We'll be doing that next week.
Thank you for listening to this.
Yeah. Subscribe to us, write us a review, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. all that stuff.
All that good stuff.
We'll be back next week. Thanks for checking it out. See you guys later. Good night.
Bye.